Hi, everybody. I completely forgot to click the record button at the beginning of the Blab. So I remembered right before we got to the questions and answers. So I am going to record my part of it, and then I am going to splice it together with the questions and answers so you will still have those. Um, so tonight I wanted to talk about some ways that we can help other teachers successfully. Many of you may be in a situation where you're asked to go in and help a teacher, whether you're a related service provider who goes into somebody's classroom, whether you're a teacher who's asked to help the teacher next door, or even harder, go help a teacher with a student that you used to teach, which I sometimes think is really hard, or whether you're just a teacher working with paraprofessionals in your classroom. There are some strategies that I have found over time that can really help set these situations up to be positive, um, and to be get you off on the right foot so that you avoid what I think of as the eye rolling, you're not the boss of me kind of situation, which I think we have a lot of in education. You are frequently asked to give feedback to people that you are not the boss of. So, trying to handle that proactively, there are a few things that I've found over time have really helped in getting people to buy into what I want them to do. Because let's face it, we're asking them to do something different. We're asking them to change, and that's hard. That's a difficult thing to do. The first thing I want to talk about is bring stuff, and that is sounds very shallow when I say it, but bringing materials that can help somebody in the classroom. I've only had two occasions in my very long career of consulting where that was not seen as a positive. Um, it pairs me with stuff that makes their life easier. So if I know that they're going to need visual schedules and I'm pretty sure that they don't have them in the class, I take them with me. I make them. If I don't have time to make them before I come, I might say, hey, we're going to make them together. And that way, I'm not asking them to do a whole bunch of things when I leave. And I'm pairing myself with stuff that they're going to need that's going to save them time. It also means that if I go to model the using a visual schedule, I have a visual schedule to use, which if I'm in the classroom and they don't have a visual schedule, I'm not going to be able to model that if I don't have one. So it sounds very shallow, but bringing things with you that pair you with saving time, making things easier, um, making the recommendations for them easier to carry out is going to be a huge thing. And it makes them more likely to want to listen to you. It makes them more likely to buy into what you want them to do if you show them that you're on their side. So, if you're working with a paraprofessional in your classroom, one of the things that might be helpful is, bring coffee, bring breakfast, things like that. But also think about what are the things that she really likes or he really likes. It might be something as simple as buying a pair of spring loaded scissors, scissors that I cannot live without. I love my scissors. My scissors are awesome, and giving them to her and or him, and they're just theirs. They're nobody else's. Nobody else can use them. Sometimes a gesture like that can be really useful. Sometimes you have to be careful. Sometimes that can be, well, all you're going to want me to do is cut. So be careful about that. But finding things that make something special for that person is something that I think you can pair yourself with, and it makes you reinforcing. So bring stuff. The second thing is something that you see people talk about in business. You also see them talk about in counseling, but it's called seeking the story in the stranger. But it works with the people that you're working with as well. Seek the story. First of all, we all have a ton of things going on that have nothing in our lives, have nothing to do with school. We are all real people. We all have families of one kind or another. We all are going through different stages of life. And that means that those things are, we don't work in a vacuum. We can't run at 100% every day when something is going wrong at home. So find out what is going on at home. Find out what is going on with their family. Find out what their story is. They may not tell you. You may not even know. I've had situations where I had no idea that a teacher I was working with had a child who was sick in the hospital. I've also had a number of situations where everything was going great and all of a sudden things fell apart. And that's usually a sign that something else is going on. So find the story, seek the story, and listen. Listening is huge. And I will do a whole post about ways that we show that we're listening and that we're actually listening. Because knowing that you're listened to is a huge piece of the battle. So seek the story about what's going on outside the home, outside the school. Even if things aren't going outside of school, find out why this person came to the job that they have. Why is it that they want to do this? This is not an easy job. Special ed is not, a bed of roses. And it's tough and it's grueling and it's got high expectations. And because of that, we need to really find out what is the appeal. I have a sister with autism. When I was young, I wouldn't have told you that was the appeal. But I have to tell you that it shaped me in a way that brought me to this job because it's what I've wanted to do all my life. Many of them will have similar stories. Many of them will have discovered it later in life. I've met a lot of teachers who, volunteered at a camp and a kid just stole their heart, and that's what started it. But find out what they get out of this job. What is positive about it for them? Because if they can't find something positive about it, it's going to be tough. But listen to that and seek that story. Another is, and I learned this one when I was doing practicum and internship. Someone said this to me, and again, I thought it was really silly, but I found it to be very powerful. Set them up for easy success. Find something that you can do quickly and easily, that they can do that gets them immediate reinforcement. So give them a visual cueing belt and have them redirect a student that has a history with it so that they show in the visual and suddenly he follows their directions. One of the easiest ones I know of is if you've got kids that are all over each other standing in line at the door, put markers on the floor, feet on the floor, tape them down. It's amazing how that changes the behavior. Do something that gets a quick, immediate response from the students that the teacher can see that makes a difference. And have her do it. And have her take credit for it. Because most of what we need to do is make them be in control. Make them think it's their idea. Give up on what's right, what you think is right, and focus on how you can get them to do what you want them to do, even if they don't recognize that it's what you asked them to do. But set them up for easy success. That way they come into contact with reinforcement, they feel good about it, they're going to be more likely to try something. What you try may not be the most important thing that needs to be done. It may not be the biggest thing that needs to be done. But if you can help them feel successful, they're going to be more likely to follow through. 4 is seek the good and lead with it. And what I mean by that is in some situations, you're going to be so fed up with people that you're going to think, I can't think of a single positive thing to say about this person. I'm going to give you what I hope will be the single most positive thing that you can come up with, and it is not as trite as I thought it was when I first heard it. I was running a program, and we had a program consultant who I absolutely worshipped come in and evaluate our program, and he sat our staff down at the end of the day to do feedback and said, you guys have created an amazing program here that so clearly cares about the kids. You are nurturing the kids. You clearly all really care about the students in your program. And I thought to myself, that's like his positive, because to me, at that point in my career, that was a given. I gotta tell you, it's not a given. It doesn't happen everywhere. And I've had situations where I can't say that. If you could at least say that, you're a mile ahead of the game, because I don't know how to teach it. If somebody doesn't like the kids and doesn't want to be there, I can't teach them how to do that, how to like it. So even if that's what you come up with, start with that. Pair yourself, say positive things, find the things that are going right. Um, so that you make sure that you don't want it to be start with the good and then leave the bad. You don't want it to be, oh, you're really great at this, but these are all the things that you do wrong. Just give compliments, because it's going to make people want to listen to you. And finally, number 5 is not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. There are going to be times when you're not going to be able to reach somebody, when they're not going to buy into what you want, and that's okay. That is not a reflection of you. Maybe you're not a good match for them. Maybe it's not somebody who's happy with where they are and they need a change. You're not the boss of them. You don't have the ability to tell them that it's time to move on. So what you can do is document what you were asked to do. Make sure you give them a summary. I feel very strongly that you should leave them with something in writing, even if it's handwritten, so that they know what you asked them to do, because it's hard to take a lot of information in immediately. And sometimes I'm surprised when I leave something in writing, it actually gets done, even when I thought that was the worst day I ever spent. So give them a summary, not these are the things that you have to do, but here's some suggestions that I made. And make sure that you follow up with whoever asked you to go work with this person. If it's a paraprofessional, you may have to say, this is what we're going to do. I'm making a decision. It may be that you have to say, we're going to try this for 2 weeks, and then we'll look back and see whether or not it works or not. But you have to step away from it and not let it color your picture of that person, because it's going to sour you. You have to recognize that you're not always going to be the person to tell somebody something. I started this job as a wee youngster. I was the youngest of most administrators. And there were times that I had to go to my boss and say, you need to go tell the special ed director in this district that she needs to do this, because there's no way she's going to listen to me. And my boss would go and tell her, and she'd listen, because I was too young. I didn't have that experience. Many of you have that situation with your parents. And I think you have to say, I recognize that you have a lot of history and a lot of investment and time and experience in this, and I want to hear what you have to say. But I also want to make sure that this is what our vision is. And I think you have to then lay out what the vision is, if it's your classroom, and say, this is what we're going to move forward with. And, there may be times that it becomes an administrative problem, and I'll talk about that later down the line. But recognize that it's okay if somebody doesn't like you. I think that's very, very hard for us to say it's okay. But if you let it go, it's going to be much less likely to sour your relationship with that person, particularly if you are trapped in a classroom with them for 6 hours a day, which often happens. So those are my 5 suggestions. We had some good discussion that I will add to this video, so that you'll have that as well. And I hope you'll come back next week at 7. I will make sure to record it. And we will be talking more about being leaders in the classroom, special ed classroom. Thanks. Most of you are probably in situations where you're not in control, you're not the boss of them. Is this something that fits with your experience? Thanks, Susan. Well, if you have an issue where it should be taken care of by an administrator, but they avoid doing so, I would try to make sure that you've documented that you're trying to do it. You've documented what you have done. You can't do the administrator's job for them. All you can do is control yourself and know that you have given all of the supports that this person needed to be successful. And I think going back and sharing with the administrator, I've done this, I've tried this. What do you suggest I do? So rather than saying, I need you to intervene, ask for advice, and maybe they have something else that they want you to try, or maybe they realize that means they're going to have to step in. So, I think you document what you've done, you do everything you can to try to lead them to where you want them to be. And then you go back to the administrator and you say, it's not working. Is there anything else you think I can do? Because that's really all you can do. How do you handle when your para thinks that she has more experience than you and doesn't like how you're changing things? That's a good question. I would say find out. In some situations, the para does have more experience than the teacher. May not be positive points, but they may be points that, they may not be positive experience or the experience you'd like them to have. I would say follow these 5 things. Start off with building a relationship. Find out why she thinks we should do it the way it was done. And I'm a big one for, I know that you've done it this way. I know that this is what you're comfortable with. Change is hard. Change is hard for everybody. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that and that we basically say, I want to try it. Let me try this and see how it goes. And I'm a big fan, whether it's a conflict with a staff member or a family member, let me try it. Let me take data on it. Let's see what works. And then sit down with them and say what worked and what didn't work. Find out from them why they do this job, what they get out of it that they enjoy. Find from them how you can support them. And are there things that this person can do their way that are going to make them feel like they've got some control? Because oftentimes you're dealing with a situation where they felt like they were in control and you come in and by changing everything, you take that control away. So are there areas of the day where maybe they can do things their way? And maybe you don't like the way they do it. And that's okay for a little while. Let them do that. Let them still have those areas of control. And slowly, as you change things, maybe they'll see that what you're suggesting is going to work. But change is hard. And it's really hard if you've always done it this way. My job is usually to go into districts and tell them, no, we're not going to do it that way anymore. But that is a tough one. And I think you have to take it slow and build a relationship. I think that's huge. How do you handle a negative para? Negative comments about the students. I sit down and have a conversation about what I want to see and what I don't want to see. And one of the things that I do is I ask them to watch me and tell me if I'm doing something like this. So a lot of times they don't even realize that they're being negative. So a lot of times if I say, you know what, I'm afraid that I'm going to say something negative about the kids and I really want to create a positive environment in the classroom. I really want the kids to be in a classroom where we're all showing them what they can do and not focusing on what they can't do, because that's going to make all the difference. We all want to be somewhere where people are positive. So would you do me a favor and look my way and give me some sign if I'm saying something negative about a student when the student is there? And I'll do the same for you. I don't think we always realize how much we do that. And so I'd really like somebody to give me feedback and be prepared for them to tell you when this is going to happen. But lay out the ground rules, lay out what you want to see. And I think you have a right to do that as a teacher. I think it's both of your classrooms and you have to compromise. But I think to be able to say, this is where we're going. This is my vision. And then show them how to get to that vision and get them to help you get to that vision is going to be huge. So, I think that piece of it is hard because it's really easy to get caught up in the don't say bad thing, don't talk about that kind of thing. And I think you're really better off saying, hey, you tell me when I'm doing it. Because yes, it invites criticism, and yes, sometimes that's hard, but it makes it clear that you're not blaming them. Other thoughts? This is great. I'm so glad we have so many people here. Does that help, Keisha? Okay, good. Because I don't think that's an unusual situation at all. I think many of us have been in that situation. I've talked to parents that have that problem with teachers. Other questions? Other thoughts? Can never tell if people are typing or. And I can't believe I forgot to record this. I will, for those of you that are coming in later, I had forgotten to record it until we got to the question and answer piece. I will record the beginning of it over, and I'll put the two recordings together, and they'll both be available on the blog. I can't believe I did that. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm so glad you're here. I will be back next Sunday at 7, talking about another area of leadership. If you have issues that you would like me to address, obviously I'm not addressing personal issues, but if there are areas that you'd like more information about, please let me know, and I'll focus on them. I've got a list of topics I want to work on, but I'm interested to hear what you guys want as well. So I'm glad that we got to have a discussion. I'm really glad you came, and I will hopefully see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, guys. Bye-bye.